Sponsored by White Claw. Just kidding. Hi everybody. Welcome back to my channel. It's Constance, the reader. It's September 1st, and we're going to talk about everything I read in the month of August. It's been a long day. I'm done with work. So I figured let me go ahead and get this done, because if I don't do it now, I'm going to struggle. So the month of August was a great reading month for me, but I'm actually going to talk about the books I didn't get a chance to read just yet. I didn't finish, but I will be finishing in September, that I started in August though. So let's get into it. So I did start reading Bloody Bones by Laurel K. Hamilton. As I mentioned, this was a book that first started my love of Laurel K. Hamilton when I got into reading the series that my stepdad recommended to me when I was like 13. So it's like one of my favorites in the series. I am on chapter 18. I accidentally skipped this book as I've been like going through it again, so that was my bad, but still loving it. Hope to finish it in the month of September and then start the next book that I should have been reading had I not skipped this to the next book. Blah, blah, blah. Still going strong. I didn't bring it up on my Kindle, but I started reading The Girl with the Dragon Fruit Tattoo by Carrie Doyle. It's book 3 in the Trouble in Paradise series. It's a cozy mystery. I got approval on NetGalley to read this, and honestly, I'm loving it. I definitely will be finishing this soon. I think I'm about 50% of the way done, so I can't wait to finish. Honestly, this cozy mystery that I started this year, I like it so much. It's so funny. It's nice to see Plum again. You know, I'll link the other videos that I've talked about this series before, but I would absolutely recommend Trouble in Paradise series. It can be very funny. There's actually a passage in this one, like this little interaction that Plum is having with this man, and it made me laugh out loud. And that is the thing I genuinely like about the Trouble in Paradise series, is that I've laughed out loud in every single book. Genuinely funny. I also started Shortfall by Robert Jackson Bennett. You know, I don't know why. I started this. I didn't make it very far. Oh, it's upside down. I made it to page 51. I think I just got so wrapped up in reading Bleach and some other books that were a lot shorter. So I definitely intend to finish this in the month of September, because I got approved for the 3rd book on NetGalley. I really want to finish the series. It's my own fault that I didn't get to this, but so far so good. I don't have the book with me, but I started listening to From Blood and Ash as an audiobook, but that was towards the end of the month of August, so I didn't really think that I was going to finish it. Kind of like it so far, although I'm a little confused about Poppy, the main character. I may have missed something, but I don't understand what she is, like her importance. But so far, it's not so bad. Got a little steamy in that first few chapter. So interesting, because I know some people have talked about it's like fantasy romance, but there's clearly some action in it. There's some blade work. So, and that's not me talking about that's not a euphemism. That she has a blade. So yeah, I'm liking it. And then of course, still trying to read Kingsbane. It's not working well for me. I really do want to finish that, because I really want to finish that series this year, but we'll see. We're not going to hold our breath, but we are going to cross our fingers. I think that's good enough. So bringing out the handy notebook, because there's some ones that I don't own, but I would like to talk about. So as I said, I've had a good reading month in August. I actually read 172 books out of my 200 book goal for my reading challenge for Goodreads. So I read a total of 24 in the month of August. I read 18 manga, 3 memoirs, and 3 novels. So one of the books I don't have, but I really, really liked, was the audiobook by Jeanette McCurdy, I'm Glad My Mother Died. Wow. That was fantastic. I don't think anybody didn't have that on anticipated 5-star read list. Of course, it's one of those books where it's hard to say that was such a good book, because the subject matter is really sad and very dark, but ultimately it was such a good book. I listened to it as an audiobook. Jeanette McCurdy narrated it. Her voice is just perfect. I listened to it on 2 times the speed, and it was she's got the voice for that speed, in my opinion. She has a very like kind of dry monotone voice, but she is so funny as she's reading the book. Like her dry humor and like deadpanning stuff was like so funny to listen to. I never watched iCarly when I was a kid. Well, because I wasn't a kid when iCarly came out. I was a young adult. I know no desire to watch Nickelodeon anymore. So there's a lot of stuff that I didn't know. And after reading this, I've learned more about like Nickelodeon during that time. Dan Schneider needs to be locked up. That's what I do know. That man needs to have the lock him up for real. She talks about how, what'd she call him? The creator, the person, he was a little sicko. Okay, he wanted people's feet pics, scaring the girls on set. No. Apparently he was like very verbally abusive. It's still like physical abuse if someone destroys stuff around you. Just because they don't hurt you physically doesn't mean that they're not causing you trauma. So it just sounds like he was just an unpleasant person to be around. I would never have wanted to work with him. But I started to see some of the stuff that people were talking about, like, because like I said, I never watched Nickelodeon then. I saw a clip from, I guess it was like a commercial or something, one of those little commercial clips that they do on Nickelodeon where it's not really a commercial, like for like toothpaste. But it was like Ariana Grande had to get on a bed, lay on her back with her head over the edge, and it was like, you can't drink water and sing at the same time. And they had her in a tank top, but it was like kind of low cut, and she's spilling water in the hollow of her neck as she's singing, which mostly sounds like moaning. Everyone on set should be arrested who was an adult. Why would anybody sign off on that? And there was much more. There was much more. But besides Dan Schneider being a predator, allegedly, should I say that? Should I say allegedly? Besides all the creepiness, her mother, was abusing her and her brothers, but really, really abusing Jeanette. She suffered from an eating disorder. Her mom was constantly criticizing her weight, assaulting her. It was just very bad. It's wild to think about the things that some people are experiencing behind closed doors. I'm glad that she has been able to move on with her life and I don't want to say find humor in this, but if you see her in interviews talking about like the controversy of the title of her book, I really like her response, which is, people who've been through this understand. If you kind of have a problem with it, it is what it is, but it's because you don't get it. And yeah, I can definitely agree. Next, I read Stay Awake by Megan Golden. Did I mention that I rated Jeanette McCurdy's book 5 stars? That was a 5-star read. Stay Awake by Megan Golden. I finished that the last day of August. I got approved for it on NetGalley. Took a long time for me to read it. I think it's already been released at this point. Wow. I had a lot of thoughts. I'm glad I gave myself a day to talk about it because it was just gonna be crazy when I read the book. It was wild. I don't want to give too much away, but what I'll start off by saying is the murder, everything was so convoluted. Why would you go through those many steps to possibly try to frame someone when you could just kill everybody? I mean, seriously. If you've read it, I think you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, this book is following a woman named Liv. 2 years ago, she suffered a traumatic event. She was almost killed in her room. Okay, she was almost killed. I almost gave something away. And something else happened. She was in a coma for a while, and when she awoke, she did not remember like what happened, who tried to hurt her, anything from that event. 2 years go by, she's trying to live her life, and then she starts having these blackouts where it's almost like she is trying to force herself to stay awake so she can try to remember what happened, but it's making, you know, this traumatic thing made her have amnesia, but it only made her forget this one traumatic event. Now that she's forcing herself to stay awake, she is now making the amnesia situation worse. So when she goes to sleep after like exhausting herself for being awake for like 24 hours, she forgets everything from the night before. But she also no longer remembers her life 2 years like in the present / future. She's like taken back to her time in New York where this thing happened. That was a very, very crazy. That was a very crazy thing. She writes on her hands to help her remember. On Goodreads, so my notes are, get a notebook, please. She has access to notepads throughout this entire book. She could have easily gotten a notepad and written everything down before she fell asleep. So it drove me crazy because it's like, I understand that, you know, when she wakes up again, she doesn't remember, but it's like, at some point you start to figure out you've lost your memory. Write the bitch down. Because she gives herself no context as she's writing out her hands. I mean, she can't, you know, write an essay on her arm. Blah, blah, blah. So we're following her present day in the past, leading up to this traumatic event where she was attacked. We are also following the 2 police officers who are working the case, trying to figure out, well, what's going on. I liked the cops, I suppose. They were a very interesting part of the thing. Got a little bit of background on them. But yeah, I rated that book 3 stars. It was enjoyable. It was kind of a quick read for the most part, but at the same time, the very beginning was slow going. I think that it was really easy to figure out who hurt her, because one of the chapters essentially just gives it away. And then from there, I was kind of like, all right, well, it seems like it might be this person. And then when you find out that it's that person, and if they inevitably, you know, spill all the beans to her because I'm going to kill you anyway, it's like, well, that was the most ridiculous plot ever. Like, why would you go to those links? It was so ridiculous. Anyway, I still would say read it, but it was only like 3 stars for me. Not the worst book I've ever read, but not the best book I've ever read. So yeah. So I read Jenny Lawson's Broken in the Best Possible Way for the book club with my mom and my sister. This was my mother's pick of the month. And honestly, I think I made the biggest mistake listening to this as an audiobook first. This woman's voice is horrifying to listen to, in my opinion. You certainly cannot listen to it on 2 times the speed because it's just, it sounds like this like frighteningly nightmarish stream of consciousness where she doesn't take a breath at that speed, but also how high her voice is, it just comes off as very whiny. So I struggled so hard to listen to this as an audiobook, and it would be like I don't even think I would make it like 10 minutes before I was like, I can't take it anymore. I can't listen to this woman's voice. I would make some progress, then I would just be like, God, it's just too painful to listen to. And the thing is like, it's supposed to be her talking about like, here's some funny stories, but here's talking about my depression and my anxiety. And the thing is that her chapters that were like really focused on her anxiety, her depression. One of my favorite chapters was her talking about the issue with the insurance company and how, you know, 1 month they'll cover her medication, the next month they won't. Then they'll say, oh, well, even though this is working for you, we're going to change it and we're going to make it this one. Or we don't think that one's working for you, we're going to make it the more expensive version. I really found that chapter interesting. So there were these chapters where she gets a little bit more personal that I genuinely liked. Then she had these chapters where I think she was really trying to be funny, and I did not find her funny at all. I constantly rolled my eyes. I often had to turn the audiobook off because I couldn't take it anymore. She talks about animal genitals a lot, and I'm not sure why she finds that so funny. Honestly, I actually let my husband listen to the audiobook, and even he was like, oh my God, he couldn't even make it. He couldn't even make it through the paragraph because it's so, like, what are we even talking about anymore? So this is a memoir that is almost 300 pages. And I say that to say that I've read some really great memoirs that were about depression, anxiety, loss of a parent, loss of a sibling, loss of a loved one, that were much shorter than this, that had a greater impact, and I think were just done so well, but still managed to be funny. And I think that this one just fell flat. I understand that a lot of people really like her other books. I personally have no desire to read anything else by this woman. I don't even know who this woman is. I don't know if she's just an author or if she does anything else, but her personality, and I know it's just based off this book, and a lot of people like the other ones, and maybe that's why people like her so much, but her personality in this book reminds me of the character in a show that is so annoyingly quirky that's their personality. Like, I'm quirky, like being, I just like, I'm so different, but you don't get a lot of time to see them, but anytime you see them, they're annoying. That was like her, except I could never get away from her. She was the main character and I couldn't stand it anymore. So 1 star, if I had to give it a star. I mean, I hated this book. I just thought it was bad. I don't want to know anything else about her, even though some of the chapters, like I said, that were a little bit more personal, I thought were well done. I mean, at one point she made a fucking chapter about the fact that she has an editor. I thought that was a joke considering how shitty this book is. And I don't want to be too mean, but yeah, I just didn't like it. I mean, she talks about how, what does she say? What was the interaction she has with her sister, where she's talking about her, oh my God. Let me just see. Let me just try to find it for you. I'm going to read it for y'all. Oh my God, the thing about the shoe. Oh my God. 6th time I've lost my shoes while wearing them. A list that shouldn't exist. Yeah. That was the chapter. She's losing her shoe. Oh my God, it's so fun. It's not funny. It just was not funny to me. Maybe that was really funny to someone else. I thought it was terrible. Where is this damn chapter? And some of these, they're really not that bad. This one's not so bad. Samuel L. Jackson is trying to kill me. What the hell? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Let me get this down. Okay, this is, how do dogs know they have penises? I'll try to say that like Jerry Seinfeld. How do dogs know they have penises? She texts people in her life and asks them, how do dogs know they have penises? And her sister's like, holy shit, yeah, how do they know they have penises? They don't have hands, and you'd think that looking at their junk would block their view because of where their eyes are. Now, my brain hurts. I don't want to know anyone in this woman's family. I don't care to know her. I just don't understand. I mean, honestly, some of the stuff that happens to her, I don't know how she's even existing anymore. Like, I mean, how are you going through the world falling into the hijinks that you are? No, I just couldn't do it. Not for me. Do a little rapid fire manga. I read volumes 11 through 21, so that was finishing the first box set of Bleach. This was fantastic. I have my second box set on pre-order, sadly. I don't know when the hell I'm getting that. I did buy the 3rd box set. I might have to resort to reading this online because the story is getting so good. But yeah, so good. I think the reason why it was so hard for me to get into it was because I have rewatched like the first 10 episodes of Bleach so many times. Not because I didn't like it, because I always got distracted with something else. So it was like I was reading what I'd already watched several times before. But once I got past that, this was so good. Volume 28, I actually even think 27 I read this month. I'm not sure. But good, the story, it's ongoing. I think it ends next year. I really wish that I had access to all the chapters now, because I'm ready for it to be over in terms of like, I want to know what happens. Like, we're still fighting, the people who are working for the evangelist. I want to just know what happens. And I read all 7 volumes of Zom 100. This series was so good. I definitely rate it 5 stars. I genuinely think that even though the series isn't over, I think it's either 9 or 11 volumes in total. I think 11. I think that this will be a solid 5-star read for the series in general. It's so cute. Akira is working for a like really toxic environment company that's very exploitative. He never gets time off. He's working overnight and coming in early in the morning. He has no social life. He doesn't see his family. He has no friends, you know, that he can even be around. And he's just like working himself to the bone for what? And one day he just really doesn't want to go to work. And guess what? The zombie apocalypse happens and he physically doesn't have to go. And there's just something so funny about that, because I know that quite a few of us in this capitalist country, capitalist world, feel like sometimes that's the only way to get a damn break with these damn jobs. But it's really, really funny. It's also got great characters. I think it was either volume 5 or 6. I mean, I thought it was such a good volume, but I cried and I laughed. Like it got better at the end, thankfully. So far, you know, knock on manga, nothing has ever ended to the point where I'm like, what am I gonna do? Everything is so sad. They tend to end well, so that makes me happy and gives me some hope. But yeah, that's the thing about this series. Like, you can be laughing at the beginning, crying at the end, or vice versa. Definitely great, recommend for sure. The first book I read this month, or finished this month, was Homicide and Hollow Hollow by Mia P. Manansala. This is the second book in the Arsenic and Adobo series. This was really good, but honestly I would rate this like 3 stars. Oh, my bookmark's still in here. I try not to compare, you know, books to the previous book. Obviously there's only 2 in the series, so like, why? This one is about Lila. You know, she is opening up the bakery cafe with her best friend and still kind of helping out at her aunt's restaurant. But as they're kind of opening the cafe, she is asked to be a judge for this like teen pageant that's in their community that's like happened like every year for, you know, 50 years or something. She doesn't have really good memories from the time that she was in the pageant, and the reason why she was asked to judge is because she won her year and she's still like in the community. She has like a lot of these memories, bad memories, with her mother forcing her to do this, and so it's not a good time for her, basically. But someone's murdered, having to deal with the pageant, and you know, she's kind of like somewhat solving it. And yeah, interesting enough, but the reason why I didn't rate it so high was the person who ends up being the murderer. Unless I really missed something, I don't know how you would have ever guessed this person was going to be the murderer. The twist of why they would do that, I can see it, but at the same time, it's like, God, I never would have guessed this person, just because we barely saw them. You know what I mean? But interesting. The other reason why I didn't rate this so high was that maybe I have to go back and read Arsenic and Adobo, but I do not remember everybody being so critical of Lila being someone who leads men on. Her best friend is like constantly saying that. Her cousin Bernie is making fun of her, and I don't remember anybody making that like a big deal in the first book, but it's such a big deal in this one, because there's still a love triangle. But the person that you know, the person who, the 2 men that she has the love triangle with, from book 1, like, it was so odd, in my opinion. I think it was very clear who it seemed like she was going to end up with. And by the end of book 2, she doesn't end up with that person. And it was almost like he started to hate her because of how much she leads men on. I just didn't understand that. And then the person who she kind of ends up with, I don't think officially, she can't make up her mind who she wants to be with, although I don't think that she was really, she's not like she was going on dates with anybody, and I don't think she was. I'm pretty sure she wasn't. Then she became very jealous when this person was getting attention from someone else, and it was like, well, okay, interesting. Her cousin and her best friend were so hard on her, and I didn't understand why. It just seemed like ridiculous. The cop is very annoying. I don't even know how old the cop is. I could have swore that he was like the age of Adam in the Noodle Shop Mystery with Lana, but I guess he's like super old because I think he's hooking up with her aunt. I don't know. There's a lot going on, but all of that to say, I just feel like the love triangle in this book specifically, I didn't like it, and it kind of took me out of it because I thought, why is everybody being so hard on Lila? Like, I just didn't like it. But anyway, other than that, like some of the newer people that are introduced, I'm not sure if we're going to continue to see them in the series, but I liked the new people introduced. I thought they were really interesting. Still, like, you know, they have the little recipes at the end of the book. I think that's really cool. I would still recommend people read this, but, you know, I definitely, if I had to pick between which book of the two, I know there's only two, I think I liked Arsenic Adobo better than I liked Homicide and Hollow Hollow. Still good, but yeah, that's where it stands. Next was a awesomely 5-star book, which was Hola Papi by John Paul Brommer, How to Come Out in a Walmart Parking Lot and Other Life Lessons. 5-star memoir. This was so good. So when I mentioned about like the size of a memoir, this is barely 200 pages. Such a quick read, so funny, so sincere, versus the Jenny Lawson one. It's almost 300 pages. And I don't even really, I mean, I feel like I know a little bit too much about her, but I don't know her really as a person, if that makes sense. Whereas this one was short, sweet, to the point, very funny, well written. I could relate to some of the shit that was in here, but it was just very funny. So the thing about John Paul Brommer is, so he's biracial. His father is white and his mother is Mexican. His grandma brought her family here, but her big thing is she just wanted them to assimilate. So John is completely like, he feels completely removed from his culture, from his identity. He's also struggling with being gay in, where are they from again? Not Utah. He's in some type of weird ass Midwestern place. He grew up in the Midwest. So dealing with, you know, homophobia in his town, people picking on him, like severe bullying, trying to find out who he is as a person, and then dating as a young adult. Very, very funny. I laughed out loud several times reading this. I thought it was really great, but some content warning for obviously severe bullying, homophobia. There was mention of like an assault that happened to him, and then like obviously racism, having experienced that. But overall, I think that this was a really well written memoir that was very funny. It made you like want to know him, want to be like, wish that you were his friend in high school type of thing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It was really good. It was 5 stars. And lastly, I read Transcendent Kingdom by Ya Jessie. This, I think I would rate like a good 3.5, 4 stars. So I got this early on when I started Book of the Month Club, and I bought this because of the author, because I loved Homegoing so much. I really didn't care what the book was about. I was like, I like Ya Jessie. For the longest time, I thought she was a ballerina. I didn't realize she was praying, because I did not even read the synopsis, because I was like, I'm just buying this because I love the author. Lord have mercy. I got to get better about doing that. Because I really thought she was a ballerina. I don't know why. Anyway, this is following a woman named Gifty. We're seeing her present as an adult in graduate school, I think it is. And then we're seeing her as a young kid growing up in Alabama, I think it is, and Georgia, somewhere in the South. And kind of dealing with, obviously, racism, religion, religious trauma, addiction in the family, loss of a family member, and kind of everything else in between. Also dealing with depression. So her, without giving too much away, because this is literary fiction. So, you know, like when you talk about literary fiction, sometimes it's like, you can easily give away what the fuck is going on in a book like this. I don't know why. Or at least it's hard for me to describe it without giving everything away, because it's not like describing Homicide and Hollow Hollow, which is just like fiction, cozy mystery. Like I can kind of give you the gist without telling you everything, whereas I feel like I struggle so much with literary fiction. But anyway, Gifty, as an adult, she is studying to be a neuroscientist. So she's in STEM, and she is working with rats and how like basically she's doing this experiment to see where the brain shows like wanting to receive rewards, and she's experimenting with mice, and every time they want to get let's just got chocolate milk, sometimes when they grab the thing to give themselves the chocolate milk, they'll get shocked. And the experiment is, how many times will this mouse grab this if they know that there is a chance that they will get hurt? And eventually every time you touch it, you will get hurt. And trying to find the science or whatever in why or where in the brain that is kind of affecting the mice. They know that they're going to get shocked, but they're getting this reward. What's the psychology behind that? As she's doing this, she's having to take care of her mother, who's going through another really deep depressive episode. This is like the second or third time this has happened in her life. And she's kind of trying to be there for her mom, and a lot of like feelings and stuff are coming back up from her childhood. And then she had to do this once other time when she was younger, which brings us back to the past. So she grew up in Georgia with her mother and her brother, and at one point with her biological father. They are from Ghana. Her mother and her father had her brother, brought him to America, and then her parents had kind of like two different lives. Eventually, the father goes back, and then that's when things start to spiral downhill for her brother. So her brother experiences addiction. This is kind of what's going on with her now, present day research. Something happens. It causes her mother to go into depression. Her mom has always been into religion. What was the religion they were in? I was about to say Protestant. That's it. It's not Catholic. It's one of them other ones, but it's a little evangelical. Let's just put it that way. So, she was always pushing them to go to church. Gifty was always trying to go to church to make her mother happy. Then her mom suffers from this really bad depressive episode where she can't take care of herself. Basically, it's just a lot is going on. But, as she grows up, she starts to question some things, so on and so forth. But yeah, so this is one of those books where it's kind of like a happy ending, but like it's also really sad. And it's just like dealing with like the everyday life of these people and how real life can be really hard. So it was kind of sad to read. Somebody experiences addiction. Obviously it's really hard dealing with somebody who's going through depression, who doesn't want to call it that. So that's the other thing with her mother. She is going through depression, but she doesn't believe in depression. So a lot is put on Gifty at a young age, and as a young adult going to school, being in STEM. So yeah, it was definitely an interesting read. It's very short. I think I managed to finish this in like a week. So if you want to read something by Ya Jessie, definitely give this a read, but I would personally always recommend Homegoing. I think that was a fantastic book. But yeah, so that was my August wrap up. I read, what I say, 24 books. I thought it was pretty good. I enjoyed myself. Now on to the next months of September. We'll see if I'll get to the books I mentioned that I want to finish. We shall see. But anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked the video, please like the video. If you like it, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Follow me on the social medias if you would like. Blah, blah, blah. So yes, have a good day. Goodbye.